Listen to my update. This may be our only chance. Well, it's here. Magic is dead. Long live Magic. Welcome to our Jank Diver Gaming Peasant Cube update for the Final Fantasy set. This set's ended up being really good, and so I'm excited to talk about some of the changes we've recently made. So let's switch our job to Cube Designer, hop on our Chocobo, and move directly into white. We're swapping Barb Spike for Dragoon Lance, and we're just swapping a synergy piece for a more generically playable option. The Lance giving flying in the later stages of a game will give a lot of reach options for aggressive decks that are kind of flooding out compared to the extremely meager bonus that Barb Spike provides. Requisition Raid has been a total beating in an environment that's trying to directly support an artifact theme, and it very commonly results in killing two things as well as some counters getting thrown around. The Delivery Moogle should help support these artifact synergies and has some really nice targets, including spring-loaded Saw Blades and the new Dragoon Lance. Our last swap in white will be Cheeky House Mouse for Zac Fair. The mouse has been a filler level 1-drop for a while, and we like Zac's protection effect. The putting a counter on a creature means that often Zac will win the trade instead of just being an onboard protection trick. Our changes in blue are headlined by finally cutting Rise from the Tides. This card's been a finisher of choice for control decks as well as some variations of Is It. It's not entirely clear if the card is broken or not, but once it resolves, there aren't that many answers to it, and it's fairly reliable as a game plan to chain removal and card draw into a winning turn with this card. Serpentine Curve will provide a similar payoff in terms of rewarding you for casting spells, but should be more manageable as a singular tall card instead of a wide board. Refute was a mostly placeholder counterspell that overperformed in Foundations, but we really like Swallowed by Leviathan. The card's already shown to be a powerful option in the retail set, but we knew we wanted this one after we saw it spoiled. At 3 mana, we like our counterspells to have value, and Surveil 2 is approaching draw card to the point that this sometimes will feel like Exclude that works on non-creature spells. Oh god, what is this? Get out of here. Okay. The Bat Song is one of the most powerful card advantage and inevitability tools in our format. If you don't die the turn you cast it, you tend to pull really far ahead by the time it ends, and all 3 chapters are great. Brainstorm is the only downshift to uncommon of these classic spells that we're adding since we deemed Counterspell and Lightning Bolt outside the design goals of our cube at the moment. It's a cool way to trigger Mindless Conscription or a Mischievous Mystic on your opponent's turn, and it's generally a strong hand sculpting tool. You're going to look for ways to clear the top of your deck, but the raw card filtering on this will make it good enough to just play in most cases. We're going to trade the efficiency of Opt for the numerous upsides on Laguna's Dream. Turns out slapping Flashback onto Curate takes a pretty mediocre effect and turns it into a good one. This will provide nice value. It's also a way to dump more cards into your graveyard. And nobody is really on Opt these days, given that Consider is strictly better in most cases. And finally, we're swapping Blizzard for Stock Up. This card might prove too powerful in the long run, given its substantial constructed pedigree and its short time existing. But we like the card and we want to try it out. Blizzard was a Tonk edition that people didn't really bite on and seems unnecessary when you also have Behold the Unspeakable in the same cube. Speaking of potentially too powerful, Warlock class has been on the no-fly list for quite a while, but we're taking it out of time out to see if it can play with others. If you haven't played with this card, it's a very powerful tool for most black decks, whether you care about the damage, the card selection, the graveyard dumping, or all of the above. Bastion has somewhat started to show its age. The 1/1 doesn't meaningfully contribute to many boards anymore, even if it's technically a 2-for-1. We really like the stat line on Scavenger as a better blocker, and we like the artifact synergies that it comes with as well. More and more of Peasant Cube these days hinges on cards that can work in the space of like fiddly tokens and things like that, and the Scavenger should provide some synergies across the board with that, while also just being a generally fine Blood Artist effect. Additionally, while Bastion is more difficult to interact with, the Scavengers is much easier to recur, so it's a bit of a toss-up there in terms of which one is more valuable. Pretty sure Tim's only agreeing to this because I'm interested in it, and the Wickerfolk slot was a fairly open one. Black Mage's Rod isn't crazy impressive as a 2/1. It kind of has a Firebrand Archer energy, but I like that you get 2 game objects out of it, and the Wizard Pings are gonna add up even if you aren't able to get 2 or 3 of them in play like you can in the retail set. Vampire Gourmand is finally getting bullied out of the cube. This card's been a punching bag by me and some others for a while. It's really not that bad, but it is fairly narrow and an unliked card. Fang is also kind of narrow, but the payoff is pretty solid, and it signals the Gravebreak synergies that we like to support inside the main colors, unlike a card like Kishla Skipper. It might seem weird for us to cut Rise from the Tides and bring in another mass 2/2 factory in the same update, but there's a couple of things going on here. Firstly, it takes generally a more committed game plan to get a bunch of creatures into the yard. You can't just chain off a bunch of removal spells and card draw and get there. And also, this card is most of the time going to have to sit in the yard for at least a turn, which means your opponent might be able to tag it with some form of graveyard hate, which is something we've been a bit more open to running lately. And it might cause players to take those cards more highly. Chef and Archfiend was just too expensive at 7 for what you get. It's an Archfiend of Sorrows at home, but it's a little past its expiration date. Gaia should be a reasonable value card. We primarily are bringing it in to tag enchantments or tokens potentially, but sometimes you're going to be able to use this card to break parity by sacrificing a black recursive dude or a value death trigger dork. Red got the lion's share of the best cards in this set, and we're starting off with one of the wilder ones in Choco Comet. On its face, it's just generically good anywhere in the 3 to 5 mana range at killing early game creatures. Playful Shove has turned out to be really powerful in this cube, and Comet on 3 is kind of doing that. If you get to 6+ mana, you're either killing a really big creature, or you're doing a big chunk of face burn, which should make it a great top deck, and it'll keep decks that are tending to try and stall at the game from getting too comfortable if they're sitting at a low life total. Fire Magic is a substantial upgrade on previous versions of this card. Cleaning out tokens for 1 mana, having the option to scale up late game into Peasant's potentially most powerful sweeper are both really powerful flexibility on top of just being the standard deal 2 for 3 at instant speed. Don't forget, you can also use this to kill your opponent's mana dork on 1, which it could be important given that a lot of green creatures are going to outsize what this card is doing. Samurai's Katana is probably the actual best card in the set for Peasant, and it's close to a templating that we might expect from a rare. The floor is incredibly high, and late game it even offers extra ways to help you push damage, and it's honestly a fairly ridiculous card. And then finally, we have Call of the Mountain Chocobo. It's not a card that we discussed in our review, but after casting it in the retail set, we knew we wanted it in. It's a great value card for a color that doesn't always get good consistency cards. It's not the flashiest kind of card, but the combination of smoothing out your land draws and providing you a little bit of value as the game goes on make it a really nice option to have, and we're excited to try it out. Okay, so we're going to start green off with a contentious one. Timeless Witness is a banger, no doubt, but we wanted to try the meld package for a while and just see how it plays. Vanilla also doesn't have the issue of not being an on-curve play when you need it, and sometimes Witness's value is just too high in the long games. You get into these spots where you feel very, very far ahead, and then Witness gets eternalized and the game becomes unwinnable. We'll come back to this down the road if we feel like it's necessary, but we wanted to try something different for a while as Timeless Witness has been here, and again, Vanilla being able to mill 2 cards, you're not going to whiff on it that often. Next up is a relatively simple swap. Took's been an interesting card that we like having in the cube, but Quina in the context of our token producing deck should do something similar but more powerful. Most decks, I think, would rather have a 1/1 token, given that green isn't exactly drowning in artifact synergies. Even if I think Took's ceiling is a good bit higher, overall, Quina should be a fairly nice card to have access to in your green token decks, especially green-white. Fenrir's proven to be extremely powerful, a really exciting card, and we wanted to give it a shot. Heritage Reclamation was a very replaceable card that we ultimately didn't need, even if the graveyard effect might get more value as we have more flashback cards and graveyard synergy cards into the format. We'll keep an eye on it and make sure that there's enough graveyard hate moving forward for dealing with those kind of decks. This is just a quick swap of mana dorks. Torval should provide a +1 counter or 2 over the course of the game, which is some nice extra value on your mana dork. And then finally, we're swapping Audacity for Tifa's Limit Break. Both are ways for green to push through damage, but the Limit Break has more combat applications and exciting moments, as well as blowout potential. Fittingly for our multicolor section, Garland is up first, and we'll be replacing Zoya. Lava Tongue was a card that Tim and I like, but it doesn't see a lot of play, and Garland should fit nicely into several shells, as well as giving red-black decks something to spend late-game mana on, which is one of the big problems with that deck. Ellis might be a stronger card, but we like Gabranth and its potential upside. If you get a single trigger on this, it's going to be a big threat, and it's not unreasonable to see this card being a 4/4 or a 5/5 in the game, given its interactions with random artifact and tokens. Renoa's getting close to what we want to see for Selesnya. It contributes to your board while also paying you off. This card might ultimately end up being too expensive, but we want to test that out and see, given that we like what it's doing. I want to preface this by stating that Shadowfax is super cool and has a lot of upside. Zidane should be a better card at letting you either finish off your opponent or steal their creature, make a big swing that puts you out of racing range. But I am going to miss the Lord of Horses. Nobody plays Dragon Cross Strike, even if it seems pretty good on paper. Gladiolus should help with splashes or closing the game for Gruul with the trample and plus effect. And if we ever get decent utility lands, you can get even more value by tutoring them up. Finally, we're benching the busted Invasion of Amonkhet. We're tentatively bringing back Sneaky Snacker as a placeholder. It's a really cool design and nothing else jumped out to us as a clear replacement in this slot. And then here are some cards we discussed, but ultimately passed on adding at the moment for various reasons. Remember, the best way to support Jank Diver Gaming is to join our Discord server, draft with us, and give us your feedback. It's a great place to hang out with like-minded individuals and talk about Cube, Retail Limited, and all things Magic. You can find links to our Discord server wherever you're listening. We host a ton of scheduled drafts throughout the week, including Peasant Cubes on Saturday, the mainline Jank Diver Cube on Sunday, F&M style drafts on Friday where players vote on a cube to play, as well as various guest cubes created by members of our community. And you can also check out socials. You can go to Twitter at Jank Diver Gaming, YouTube.com/Jank Diver Gaming. You can find me, Tim, and Chris on the Jank Tank at janktank.libsyn.com, as well as on the YouTube channel. And you can occasionally find me streaming on twitch.tv/Teld Talks. All right, thanks for joining. We hope to see you soon.